Let's say you're in the middle somewhere, not on the East Coast, not on the West Coast. Different cities, different markets have different inventory available. So you might be in a city or in a town where it's almost impossible to find a fourplex or a triplex because they just didn't build those around there. Maybe there's an abundance of two families and an abundance of single families, but none of the other slightly larger multi-units. Or vice versa. If you're looking in the kind of the blue collar neighborhoods, I'm like in the 250 to 350 range between for triplexes to fourplexes and so forth. If that's your market and that's the area, that's what you have available to you, definitely take advantage of it. All right, guys. So I'm here with Christian Bachelder. We're talking about house hack financing. Christian, among other things, is an owner of a mortgage brokerage, and he has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to house hacking. So, Christian, I just want to ask you maybe to start with, if you could give some examples of what types of loans someone could be qualified for if they're looking to buy a primary residence, which will also serve as a rental property for them.
There's multiple ways to go about it. The biggest discerning factor to start is what type of asset it is, right? So you could technically house hack anything. You could house hack a condo and rent out the other bedrooms in it, right? You could house hack a single family that has a garage conversion. An ADU is what we call it, right? ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit, if somebody's not familiar with that termage. You can house hack a multifamily. That's a 2, 3, or 4 unit property, right? There's all these different ways you can do it. What it ultimately comes down to, though, if you were to separate lending in 3 different brackets, the first one is your conforming bracket. That's where you have to qualify with debt to income. That's where FICO score really matters. That's where down payments are low. This is the biggest part of house hacking. If you can keep that down payment low, that's where you should start, because it allows you to scale and really have greater access to purchasing power based on the limited money that typically first-time home buyers have. Typically first-time home buyers isn't putting 20, 30, 40, 50% down. That's like what experienced people do who build up that capital. That brings me to the point, obviously the best one to use is an FHA loan. As I'm sure people are familiar, you can put 3.5% down on an FHA loan. That's for a 1 to a 4 unit property. When you get into 3 and 4 units in high value markets, there's a couple lending criteria that are difficult to overcome. So what I tell people is that if you're in between the East Coast and the West Coast, try to target a triplex or a fourplex. If you're on the borders, try to target a duplex or a single family with an ADU. It's going to be the best asset class you can buy. And the idea is, let's use something in California. Let's say you buy a duplex, 2 bed, 1 bath, 2 bed, 1 bath. You occupy with your family, 2 bed, 1 bath. If you're a single college guy, right, or you're single, just, recent grad, have a roommate in that second bedroom in your unit, right? That'll help offset your mortgage. You rent out a room for $1,000 in LA all day long. The other unit, 2 bed, 1 bath that can house a family, is probably getting $2,500 to $3,000 a month, depending on where it is. Your mortgage on that is probably going to be $6-7 grand, but you got $3,000 and $1,000, $4,000, you're now living for $3,000 in a house that costs you $7,000. So a lot of people say, oh, no, house hacks doesn't work because I can't offset the entirety of my mortgage. You're losing the point a little bit here. Yeah. You're building wealth at a $7,000 a month rate, only expensing $3,000. And what you're not realizing is when you move out, now you have $3,000. Now you're just about breaking even. You have a rental property that somebody else is paying your mortgage, and you get all the tax benefits, and it doesn't cost you anything. That's a win, right? You're also not realizing that those tenants are paying down that mortgage. So you only put 3.5% down. Let's put some numbers on this. You buy $1 million house. Seems like so much. That sounds like such a big number to a first-time home buyer. Oh my God, how can you buy $1 million house? Well, because I put $35,000 down. That's like the cost of a Honda. So instead of going and buying your Honda in cash, go buy $1 million house. That seems pretty crazy, doesn't it? And get some rental income to offset it. Once you move out, you offset all of it. You build up that equity. You do it again next year. And the idea is, as long as you can qualify in this first bracket of lending, which is like full doc is what we call it. It's where you have to qualify with your tax returns and your actual income verification. Those are the loans that seasoned investors can't compete with. Like, I can't do that anymore. I have more than 10 properties. You can't do that anymore. There's no more conventional loans for us. Right. So everybody who thinks like, oh, there's all this competition and all that, like, you're only competing with other conventional loan buyers, right? If you're getting this really strong, solid product. Right. The investors, like, I don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. I got to go pay the non-conventional interest rates. Right. It always cracks me up when people complain about like an FHA interest rate. I'm like, I'm paying like 3% more. Right. And I have to put 20% down.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you have access to that, if you're a veteran, please for the love of God, use your VA loan. It's the best loan in the country. 0% down, lowest interest rates, no PMI. It's insane. But utilize those low down payments, something that you can note. Oh, I don't qualify for $1 million house. Cool. Get a cosigner. One of those people that was going to occupy the property with you, get them on the loan. Oh, we still don't qualify. Cool. I can add up to 4 people to a mortgage. Now, I'm not saying go just like maximum leverage every one of your friends, but get in the right one with the right people. I promise you there's somebody in that local real estate investment meetup group who's trying to house hack as well. You guys may be able to, lower the barrier to entry if you just do it together. That would be my starting point for sure.
So you mentioned FHA 3.5% down. Yep. You mentioned VA for veterans 0% down. What about if you wanted to do, there's a conventional route, right? So what's the down payment on just a conventional owner occupied loan? Conventional
with a single family, you can put 3 to 5% down. The problem is when you start getting into multifamilies with conventional. This is where FHA and VA really separate themselves. Mm-hmm. The down payment goes up to 15% for a duplex and 20% for a 3 to 4 unit, which kind of invalidates most first-time home buyers.
The point.
So stay FHA if you're 2 to 4 or VA. Conventional if you want to target like a single family with an ADU. That's still a single family. So you can put 5% down. You just want to stay away from the multifamilies when you're going conventional.
Let's say you're in the middle somewhere, like you said, not on the East Coast, not on the West Coast. I happen to be, I guess you can consider my investment area East Coast, but we're not really, because we're not New York City. We're 2.5 hours removed from New York City. So we're more inland, and we are more like those Midwest markets than we are the coastal markets. And obviously this matters too, obviously, and you mentioned it already, but different cities, different markets have different inventory available. So you might be in a city or in a town where it's almost impossible to find a fourplex or a triplex because they just didn't build those around there. Maybe there's an abundance of 2 families and an abundance of single families, but none of the other slightly larger multi-units. Or vice versa. Like in my area, I'm very fortunate. I feel like, because not only do we have, I'm near Albany, New York center. It's the capital of New York State, which not New York City. A lot of people have that misconception.
You would think,
just like California, right? It's not LA, right?
It's not LA, not San Francisco.
So we are at the capital. So we have a lot of jobs coming from government agencies, businesses as well. And we have quite a few colleges. So we have a very strong renter pool. And we also have some of the kind of like, it's like a multiple city area that are sprawled out, but pretty close to each other, where they did years ago when they were building these cities, when they were building them up, they have an abundance of small multifamily properties. So I'm kind of like in this best of all worlds type of a situation.
It doesn't sound
where
too bad.
The prices aren't crazy high. So we're not talking about $1 million for a duplex. We're not talking about even $1 million for a fourplex. We're more, especially if you're looking in the kind of the blue collar neighborhoods, I'm like in the 250 to 350 range for triplexes to fourplexes and so forth. And if
everybody in that city should be getting a 3.5% down fourplex loan every year.
Exactly. Right. 100%. Exactly. So if that's your market and that's the area, that's what you have available to you, definitely take advantage of it. If 100%. You're in one of these other markets that Christian is talking about, where it has to be a single family, or ADUs are extremely popular and they're actually encouraged in California, as I understand it, go for that. Do that.